your one-stop travel shop on Fox Sports Radio, 101.5 FM, 1570 AM, KVTK, Vermilion, and Yankton. And we have a special in-studio guest. We're going to be talking some amateur baseball with James Grotenhuis. James, how are you doing today?
Very good.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it. And I tell you what, let's just start with the basics for people that don't know you. Especially with your kids, they might know the name Grotenhuis, but maybe they're not aware. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your background in baseball, hobbies, interests, all of that.
All right. I've got my wife, Tracy Grotenhuis, my two kids, Cooper and Mac. I work at Core Trust Bank and market president there, and we also own the Fox Stop convenience store on the northwest corner of town. So it's kind of what our occupations are, and our two kids are in college. Cooper will be an incoming senior at Mount Marty, runs track, he's a triple jumper, and Mac, our youngest, he is a student at SDSU. He'll be a sophomore this coming year. So that's a little bit about us.
All right, it's unbelievable. You said it, and I mean, I know time moves, but man, for you to say Cooper's going to be a senior, I'm like, but my own daughter, she's graduated in 2021, and so or 2020, sorry, and it just time just moves. It kind of like, oh wow, I think COVID really screwed up the whole timeline as far as how we conceive of time anymore.
It did seem like high school years went fast for the kids, but then we're kind of slower than college hit, and all of a sudden college is going really fast. So
yeah, that's
it has gone fast.
It has, and Cooper's been doing some great stuff, triple jump, track and field at Mount Marty. How fun is it to, have them both really close by? I mean, SDSU's not horribly far, but be able to even enjoy what Cooper does, Mount Marty, and with the GPAC fairly close with most of those meets. Are you guys able to kind of take some of those in?
Yeah, we do. It's still, you run around in high school and your kids are playing all the sports, from football to basketball to track, and we did our fair share of running around chasing them, and so this is kind of a nice kind of slow down with only one sport to have to go to, but yeah, it's still fun to be able to watch your kids
and not having to worry about running to practice and getting them here, and if they forget something, it's on them, it's not on you.
right
It's like, oh no, this is much easier, this is a much lower threshold. That's awesome. Well, obviously we're going to be talking some baseball, but so you have a history. You played at Mount Marty, did some amateur ball. Were you born and raised in Yankton?
Nope, I was born and raised in northwest Iowa, a small town called Alton, and went to a JUCO for 2 years in northwest Iowa Lakes Community College.
Okay.
Played baseball up there, and then transferred to Mount Marty for my junior senior year.
Okay, and then just ended up making Yankton your home?
Yeah, just really kind of loved Yankton. Got an internship at a bank here in town at a competitor right now, but I still like them, First Dakota. They gave me an opportunity and ended up staying and worked there for 5 years, and then moved over to Core Trust and been there ever since. So.
All right, and then and people say I don't do any research, but I was looking stuff up, and I'm an idiot sometimes. I didn't realize Tracy had coached volleyball at Mount Marty.
Yeah. For about 9 years, she was the head volleyball coach. That was her first job out of college.
Okay.
And she always kind of jokes a little bit that she was only a year older than some of the kids she was coaching. So, she did that for 9 years, and we still have obviously a strong connection to Mount Marty with Cooper going there. So, we've kind of had our time up on the hill.
Well, and that just shows sports kind of runs in the family, and so obviously that's been, kind of shows with Mac and Cooper both being big in sports around here. What has sports just in general meant to you and your family, as far as, your family life, but also how you apply your career in sports to what you do in life?
Well, I think there's multiple things that I think we've all drawn from it, is obviously competitiveness, to whether it's still in sports, or whether it's a job, or whether it's accomplishing something outside of your daily life, but just the competitiveness to learn how to compete, learn how to win. Also, you got to learn how to lose graciously too when you do lose, because it's not all perfect. But I do think it's learning how to be a gracious winner, and also learn lessons when you lose. So I think that's just an overall application to life that sports has always done for us, that you really can't teach anywhere else. You can tell somebody, but you really can't teach that.
Well, and I agree. And one thing I've been hitting on lately is obviously in this day and age, there are a finite amount of dollars for schools. And so they always talk about what they can cut. And, some people will argue, oh, cut this sport or cut this art or cut the... And I personally, I'm of the feeling that all of it applies. All of it has benefit to well-rounded kids or becoming well-rounded adults and contributing members, because you start eliminating some of that. For some people, that's their outlet. Maybe they're not great students, but this is the way that they're going to be able to get an education. They're going to be able to maybe even just have that self-confidence. You never know what a home life is. Do you see the value in that as well for education?
Absolutely. It's obviously a path for some people to attend school post high school, and gives them some time to figure some things out. It helps with time management, helps with discipline. I think it just makes you a more well-rounded person to be able to participate in those activities, whatever they are. I mean, whether it's high school and organized sports, or my whole family plays golf now, so it's a deal that we're still athletically competitive, even though golf is a little bit more laid back, but you're still competitive with yourself. You're still competitive with the field. You still want to be good, and so but it's not always good. Sometimes you're going to play bad, and just learning how to deal with that is also a life lesson.
Well, it really is. And you've mentioned competitiveness, and that's always a question I like to ask. As an athlete at Mount Marty, then when that was done, was amateur baseball and now golf, were those ways to kind of scratch that competitive itch?
Sure. I grew up golfing a little bit, but was always a baseball player in the summertime. And so, the ability in South Dakota to continue playing baseball, even though you're not a professional anymore, but you still have teammates and friends and young men around the area that can still play at a good level. It's kind of our little dream to continue our baseball careers, even though we're past our college days, and I think that was always kind of like men playing a boys' game. It's kind of the outlet of having fun with your friends, and that's exactly what it was for us here in Yankton when I started playing here. It was all of our friends from Mount Marty that stayed to play, and we had good teams, and we had some success, and that obviously makes it a lot more fun too.
Well, let's talk about that. So you played, Yankton's had a variety of iterations of amateur baseball teams. So who did you play for?
Well, my amateur baseball career started playing for Larchwood, Iowa.
Okay.
So that was up in the northwest corner of Iowa. My small town that I told you I grew up in, Alton, we had a town team, but it wasn't, Iowa amateur baseball wasn't nearly as organized as what South Dakota amateur baseball is. So after my first year of college, a mutual friend of mine, he said he wanted me to come up and play Larchwood with him. I didn't know anything about it other than Larchwood was a West Lyon school district, was a huge rival of ours in high school, especially baseball. They're a baseball town and a football town. And so I played with some of those guys, but I didn't really know them. And so that was a little intimidating, but they welcomed me, and I played up there for 4 summers.
Okay.
And then the rest of my amateur career was in Yankton. And when I started playing here, it was the Yankton Wolfpack.
Okay.
Was our name for the 1 year. Yep, the first year that I played here.
All right, and then and you guys, like you said, you had some success. How many years did you end up playing amateur ball in Yankton?
So I played 4 here in Yankton, took a year off, and then ended with one last year in Tabor.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And Tabor's one of those towns that always has a lot of success to it. And, it's amazing when I look at the members of the South Dakota Amateur Baseball Hall of Fame, how many at least had a cup of coffee in Akron. Jeez, why? They all they have an O in there. But in Tabor, the number of great players that have played in Tabor and been a part of that program is just amazing when I start thinking, Craig Mock and Steve Pfeiffer and a Mike Dufek. You just start listing them off, and it's like, wow. So Tabor's been amazing too. But with Yankton, you guys won a state championship, didn't you?
Yeah, my first year, we I think Brookings was on their run of several state championships, and so my first year, we ended up facing them in the semifinals and beat them, and then we played for a state championship that year, but lost to Renner.
Okay.
And then 2002, we didn't do as well in 2002, but in 2003 is when we ended up winning a state championship. Yeah.
All right, and who would be some of the names on that team with you?
I could probably go through the starting lineup of the state championship team. So in left field was Aaron Losing. Aaron was a Mount Marty product. Obviously, then went on to have great success at Crofton as the girls basketball coach. In center field was my brother-in-law, Travis Thompson.
Okay.
Travis was the high school girls basketball coach at Crofton right before Aaron Losing was.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
so Travis had some success there as well. In right field, Jimmy Bauer, who was I went to all 4 years of school with him. He went to the same junior college I did. He's from Springfield, Minnesota, but then he came to Mount Marty to play, and he stuck around. So he was our starting right fielder. At third base, it would have been Matt Tereshinski.
Okay.
Matt, in the semifinal game the night before, he kind of blew his hammy out or tweaked his hammy. His hamstring. So we ended up having Jeremy Grady, who is a Mount Marty product from my same hometown. He's a banker up in Salem. Salem didn't have a team that year, so he was one of our release players.
Okay.
And so he ended up playing third base that game. Jason Nelson was our starting shortstop. I think most Yankton people are familiar with Jason.
Yep.
Our starting second baseman was Travis Peters. Travis, Mount Marty kid, and originally from Spearfish, and a good player from Mount Marty. Our first baseman was Jason Selchert, another Mount Marty product, and Gayville's Volun superintendent. And our catcher was Jesse Kurtenbach. Jesse was, I think, an all GPAC Player of the Year, I think twice maybe. Catcher from Groton, South Dakota. So, yeah, and I don't think he's playing anymore, but Travis and Jesse played for quite a few years after Yankton up in Del Rapids. So,
okay.
And so did Jimmy Bauer. He actually moved on to and played in Del Rapids and a few other teams as well. But
wow.
that was our starting fielders, all Mount Marty guys.
Well, and a lot of names people will know. I mean, when you start talking Matt Tereshinski and Jason Selchert and Jason Nelson, and it's now a generation where, just like Cooper and Mac, you have their kids who are contributing and being a part of Yankton athletics or Gayville Volun athletics, and and as somebody who was a teammate of them and a peer, same generation, do you kind of you talked about those bonds that are formed? Do you kind of share in those successes as well of their kids?
Absolutely, it's fun to see. Andy Bernardo was also on the team with us. He was a pitcher, but he was also coaching the Legion, so he wasn't always there all the time, but he was still an influence. And both he and I coached like baseball all through 8 through 12U with each other because our kids were the same age. And then Jason Nelson and I did the same thing for Mac's class. Mac and Easton were in the same class, so we had a baseball team and so we made those connections, and then we got to coach with each other, our kids, and so I think the continuity of that was always very fun to see and fun to watch and see each other's kids grow up playing the sport that we loved as well.
Well, and kind of talk about that, because that's kind of the thread that runs through almost every interview I do about amateur baseball is the baseball's almost the vehicle for the brotherhood and the bonding, that forms, because rarely do I find a game where as soon as that final out is done, shake hands and then everyone's out. There's always that social aspect afterwards. And did you find that as well? It was just a chance to also have a social outlet.
Yeah, for sure. Take, for instance, Larchwood. Their tradition was Sunday afternoon home games. Whenever they had a Sunday afternoon home game, we always played at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in the heat of the summer. I think now around here it's usually a night game. But in Larchwood, it was always a 1 p.m. start, afternoon Sunday home game. And afterwards, everybody went to the city park, including the opposing team. There was always an invite extended to them. And we'd grill brats and burgers, and we'd have beer and food in the city park afterwards with the opponents. I mean, and everybody wanted to get a Sunday home game in Larchwood, or an away game. Everybody wanted to do that because they knew that it was going to be kind of a fun deal in the park afterwards.
Well, that's cool. I think that embodies amateur baseball, and I get a little Pollyannish about it, but I always view it, especially because we're a rural area. Even Yankton is still rural, and it kind of reminds me of old school farming, where it's branding season, so everyone goes to the Schumacher farm. We're going to take care of the cattle here. Or it's harvest season. We're going to go over and help the Phillipses, and we're going to take care of it. Everyone comes together, and then we're all going to go to lunch. We're all going to go into Bogner's. Obviously I have a lot of Crofton references here, but we're all going to then go here and just commune together. It's that community, and it feels like it's almost every game is almost just like a little small town festival, and that's why I love doing all the 4th of July games, is because you're in a town like Lesterville and you have 500 people in the stands in a town of 160 some. You go to Menno, it's the same thing. It's just the atmosphere and the generations that you see. What was it that kept you playing for those years? Because obviously life was getting busy, but you played for a number of years, and like you said, you took a year off, came back, and went and played a year for Tabor. What was it about it that kept that draw for you?
I don't know. I think it was always just probably wanting baseball to always be part of, it was part of my identity at the time, mm-hmm. right? And so you try to hold on to some youthfulness, I guess, when it comes to still playing a sport, and obviously doing that with your friends and having success obviously drives that, and wanting to achieve something drives that. So, I think once we won it in 2003, people are getting married, people are having kids, and that, I think that kind of, people started kind of going in some different directions, and that, I think that kind of then was like, well, that's enough. And I did take a year off, and my wife teases me because I always played I played baseball when we had little kids, and Mac was born in 2007. So Gary Corton actually called me and asked, hey, you want to come play in Tabor? I know you took a year off, but you want to come play in Tabor? I just need you to pitch. I just want a Sunday pitcher. Will you come do that? So I agreed to, and no, I wasn't at my peak, with 2 now little kids at home, and not really much training on the side or anybody to really play catch with. It was hard to perform at the level that I thought I could, and so just not being 100% committed, I just said, well, I'll call it a career.
Well, and that's understandable. But obviously baseball's been a part of your blood, and when we were talking about walkout music, you were like, Mason Miller. Do you still follow baseball?
Absolutely. I'm a Cubs fan. I get maybe one of only a handful of people that if you got into my car right now, I've got MLB radio on. I listen to MLB radio all day long when I'm in the car, and really not music that often. But yeah, I'm a Cubs fan. I don't really watch baseball on TV much. Summertime, we're just out and about, and our TV doesn't get turned on very often. But if I'm at work or if I'm on the road somewhere, I can easily listen to Pat Hughes and Ron Santo call a Cubs game. So that's one of my favorite things to listen to, actually.
Oh, yeah. And my aunt, she's up by the Twin Cities. She's a huge Twins fan. And none of her kids are, but I'm a huge Twins fan. And so we we text back and forth about games and stuff. And there is something different about a radio broadcast of baseball. It feels like baseball goes really well with radio because you're painting this picture and it has that connection to it. And so, yeah, a radio broadcast, and Pat Hughes does a great job. I love, and obviously that's a plug for us. We are a Cubs affiliate, but I love when it starts up and Pat has that voice. All of a sudden, something feels right as soon as you hear Pat Hughes starting to talk about the Cubs. Welcome everybody to Wrigley Field. It's like, it's comforting.
Chicago baseball is on the air.
Exactly. It's comforting. It just kind of wraps you a little bit. And so obviously baseball's been a big part of it. But, when the mind starts to wander, are there some memories from baseball of your playing time that your mind goes to first?
Yeah. I remember my first time driving up to Larchwood and my first game there, and sitting in the dugout, and these guys are talking about, is Denny coming? Is Denny coming? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? They're like, you don't know who Denny Simon is? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, he's a legend. He's a 40-year-old guy that still plays, and Denny showed up a little bit late to the game, and I went and watched him out. I think I threw him a few soft toss, like just into the batting cage. Like I just soft tossed for him to get his bat loosened up, his back and body, and he stepped in, and this guy was a 40-year-old and not in pristine shape, but he was in good enough shape. He gets in the batter's box, first pitch he sees, he plants it over the left field wall. I'm like, who is this guy? So my experience of getting to know, and he's a great guy. My experience getting to know some legends around amateur baseball. That was my first memory of amateur baseball. Like, wow, okay, this is kind of fun, and so getting to know him, obviously getting to win a state championship with college teammates and friends and a brother-in-law, that is obviously a very sharp memory in my mind that I can still see us doing, even though it was 23 years ago already, which is crazy to even think about. But some of the big wins, some of the big catches, that we've all seen in our playing day, those are the vivid ones that just the elating moments that happen during games.
Well, and that's baseball. Baseball is one of those, and amateur baseball especially lends itself to those memories. I mean, I have them as well. I think I share it every time after the national anthem. My friend Chris Keeler, who was in my wedding, graduated with him, who passed away after he contracted some illnesses during his time overseas with the Army. But I had just moved back home, and my daughter, Leela, was 6, and he was with the Blue Jays and took her around and got every player to sign this baseball that she still now has, 17 years later with her down in Raleigh, North Carolina, this ball signed by Brian Gunther and Bill Gunther. And baseball and amateur baseball lends itself to that because you have the generations in the stands, kids is 3 up to 93, but you also have the generations playing. You have a 40-year-old player out there that's old enough to be somebody's dad or is somebody's dad. If you get that, last year I think Why Not had a team full of Wheatlers start a game. I think that's what's so fun about amateur baseball is the stories and the way it brings people together that might not be in the same circles outside of that baseball field.
And I think actually one of the kind of the coolest little things about amateur baseball in South Dakota is the pickup rule for the state tournament.
I love that.
And, it's crushing when your own team doesn't make it in. Mm-hmm. So Larchwood, we had good teams, and we sometimes we just run into a tough district and we wouldn't make it in. So one of my first experiences in the state tournament was as a pickup player. I went and got picked up by Lennox. Oh, wow. And so I got to play with some of those guys, and get to know some of those guys that you played against and that you viewed as great competitors and great players. And so, making some relationships with players from other teams or going to play for another team is a different experience as well. And I think it's kind of builds around that camaraderie of, hey, it's amateur baseball and we all want to win. And then all of a sudden you throw on the jersey of another team and now you're trying to help them win a state championship. I mean, that's kind of a fun, unique twist that I've always found interesting, and I don't know how that rule came about, but the fact that they still have it, I think is still kind of cool.
I think so too, because that was what I always imagined too. When I said reading those box scores and seeing which teams didn't make it, I think one year Tabor didn't make it, or Lesterville, and I was like, ooh, Crofton picked up Bill Van Driel. It's like, oh my God, it was an amazing feeling because it's like picking up an all-star. It's like the excitement you get following baseball at
it's a trade deadline.
Trade deadline, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, who did we get? Oh my good, and no, I love that. I love that rule, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I thought I was starting to think maybe I was the only one that really was kind of giddy about it, but it kind of makes you really happy, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, we I think one year in Yankton we picked up Jake Heiberger, okay. And the other guy we picked up. This is terrible of me because he is a legend. It came to me. I couldn't remember his name. Kevin Layton. Do you remember the name Kevin Layton?
Yeah.
So they ended up. I don't remember who he was playing for. I want to say it might have been Madison. For some reason, I feel like Madison had to play Class A ball one year. When we were in Yankton, I think it was 2002, in which we picked up Kevin Layton. And some of the guys on our team didn't, like, who's Kevin Layton? Like, they didn't know who he was. And so I had to explain to him, like, this guy is maybe the all-time record holder of home runs in amateur baseball. And I think for some reason they got pushed to A-ball. And so I think we eliminated them and down here, and we picked him up. And so it's kind of fun to be able to play with him. And then Jake Heiberger, I played against. I feel like he's got a Yankton connection. I'm not sure, but then ended up playing against him. When we won the state championship, ended up playing against him, and so kind of full circle that you get to know guys. And I think that's one of the funnest parts of amateur baseball.
Well, and you talk about a legend. I had a chance to interview like Bill Van Driel and Mike Dufek, but I interviewed Dave Gassman the other day, and your assumption is always, okay, with Scotland or with Canova or whatever. But he's like, there were a couple of years they didn't make it, and he'd get picked up, and it's like, to imagine picking up Dave Gassman.
Right.
I mean, we're just going to add, if not the best player in amateur baseball history, on the Mount Rushmore,
For sure.
And just to imagine that and getting that opportunity is so cool. And so, no, and I just, like I said, love talking about amateur baseball. And I've taken up enough of your time. I know you've got a real job that you have to do, but I want to thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. I'm sure you got the message and you're like, what's he going to talk to me about? So thank you so much for taking that flyer, for coming in. Really appreciate it. And have yourself a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That was James Grotenhuis. We're talking a little amateur baseball, part of our series this summer on players past and present as we continue our coverage. We're getting ready for some district baseball. Coming up in a few weeks, we'll have all of those games on 5-Star Streaming and Fox Sports Radio. And then we'll be broadcasting from Cadwell Park as every South Central League team that qualifies will be performing. That'll be here on Fox Sports Radio and audio-only streams on 5-Star Streaming due to contracts that they have as a fundraiser. We'll be back with more. This is At the Mic with Michael Schumacher, brought to you by JR's Oasis.